Okay. I think we should be about ready to begin. I've went ahead and started the presentation. So my name is Andrew McLees, and I'm the Art and Digital Innovation Manager here at Locust Projects. And I'm going to introduce Lorie Mertes, who's the Executive Director of Locust Projects, who will help kick off our 2025 WaveMaker info session. So, Lorie, take it away.
Thank you, Andrew, and thank you to everyone who's here with us today. And apologies if you tried to join us for the last session. I caught that flu and was out for a solid 2 weeks and plus some. Can't do a show of hands necessarily. I might, but basically Locust Projects is founded by artists for artists in Wynwood in 1998, for those of you who may not be familiar. Locust Projects is the longest running alternative art space in Miami. We nurture, produce, present experimental and ambitious new art that inspires the exchange of ideas through commissioned exhibitions, projects, residencies, public programs, and a summer art intensive for teens supporting the next generation. As a leading incubator of new art and ideas, we encourage boundary-pushing creative endeavors, risk-taking, and experimentation by local, national, and international artists at all career stages. We invest in you all, Miami-Dade's arts community, by providing artists and WaveMaker Incubator Grants, artists with WaveMaker Incubator Grants, and we empower creative careers by supporting the administrative work of being an artist through access to pro bono legal services through Legal ArtLink. With our newly leased 8,000 square foot space in Little Haiti, Little River, we have, for the first time ever, we have across our past 3 venues, we have leased a space that gives us the capacity to gather, to share, and expand our programming. This includes accommodating monumental exhibitions in the main gallery, as well as new programs, including Locust Late, which Andrew oversees at the Dill, which is a platform for workshops and performances centered on peer-to-peer learning and experimental works in progress. And then each summer, we're now able to extend studio access to 2 teaching artists for approximately 3 to 4 months, depending on our exhibition schedule. There's an open call for that's going to be coming out soon if you are a teaching artist. We also serve as a hub for our fellow nonprofits. We're able to offer space. We have a huge courtyard and we have program space that we're able to offer for workshops and events. And then for the reason we're all here today, WaveMaker Grants. So when I came on board in 2017, Locust was asked to take over WaveMaker from the former nonprofit Cannonball, which was originally started in 2003 as LegalArt. They're very integrally tied because both of them are really about resources that support career launching ideas and projects and sustain the work of our Miami creatives. So the WaveMaker program at Locust has awarded, since 2015, it's awarded $639,000 in funding to 125 of Miami's visionary artists, curators, and collectives. We are receiving this funding and we have this opportunity because it was the Andy Warhol Foundation who asked Locust and previously Cannonball to oversee this program. We are part of the Andy Warhol Foundation's regional regranting program, which supports the creation of independent, non-traditional, public-facing artist projects by partnering with leading cultural institutions and communities across the country. And we're happy to be the only and the first regional regranting partner in the Southeast, but the only one in Florida. And established in 2007, there's been $250 million in grants given to more than 1,000 arts organizations like ours in states across the country. And there's currently 36 regional regranting partners. And so, Andrew, I think I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you.
Absolutely. All right, so let's get into the details of the WaveMaker program. So let's first talk about eligibility. WaveMaker is open for visual artists, curators, arts writers, and cultural or cultural organizers, collectives, collaborators, and art-informed spaces at all career stages who reside in Miami-Dade County, uh, you're all very much encouraged to apply. So we support film, performances, dance, music, other projects that fall outside a strict definition of what visual arts are capable of or of what are represented. However, whatever you do, you have to understand that visual art must be the leading component in the final project. If you're applying as a group, the creative partnership can be long-standing or initiated specifically for this project. But however, you do have to identify the lead contact in this relationship. So only one application and one person entering is eligible for to fill out the application. And who's ineligible? That would be organizations and LLC who have commercial interests. So commercial enterprises are typically ineligible for the grant. And if you've received a WaveMaker grant in the last 5 years, sadly, you're ineligible as well. But we hope that you will apply in the future. Okay, so we have three very distinct funding categories that will total $60,000 in awards for projects starting after September 1st of this year. Again, that's very important that this funding will support projects after September 1st. So these individual grants are offered in $6,000 increments and across three categories. And those are new work and projects, long haul projects, and research and development projects. This is a two-part grant. We'll get to this in a minute, but it consists of both a research and development phase as well as an implementation phase over the course of 2 years. So let's start with new work. So new work is essentially we grant up to $6,000 to support the creation and presentation of new, visionary, artist-driven work and projects. Long haul projects would include $6,000 to support launching, sustaining, or completing long-term projects. We recognize that the time and commitment required to finish some of these projects requires a little bit of extra funding, so we're here for that. And then finally, research and development and implementation. So the first phase of this grant will award $2,000 to aid in the research and development of the project. And then after the R&D phase, applicants are allowed to apply the following year for an additional $4,000 that will help fund the implementation of their projects. And what's new? Unfortunately, publications are no longer eligible for funding. All right, we also have some additional information regarding the criteria of this kinds of projects that are accepted, but we'll get to that in just a little bit. So we're going to start going over the application process. It's very, very simple. All applicants are encouraged to apply via Submittable. You can go ahead and scan the QR code here or access the application on locustprojects.submittable.com. The application is also available via our microsite for WaveMaker Grants. That's wavemakergrants.org, as well as Locust Projects' main website. Okay. Excellent. And went ahead and prepared a short video that'll just go over how to apply or how to access the application that involves creating your account and applying for the grant. Okay, so when you do access our Submittable, you'll see down here at the bottom, you have the option of accessing the guidelines or submitting for an application. So we're going to sign up. We're going to create a new account. You're going to go ahead and put in your email address, as well as your first name, last name, as well as the display information. So that'll be like the display information will be the artist name or the collective's name or whoever you'd like us to register as the applicant of this grant. So once we create the account, we'll go ahead and create a password. Make sure it contains all of the required symbols and numbers and etc. You're going to receive a verification via email. Go ahead and check your email and input the verification code into the data input, and voila. We've went ahead and started our account, and we are now applying for the grant. So on the first page, the step one, you'll see all of the information pertaining to guidelines, as well as basic information such as address, etc. I'll spare you the sensitive information there, and we'll move on to the next part, which is applying for the grant proper. You're going to select your grant category at the top, and then go ahead and fill out all of the requisite information, including project title, applicant name, website, social media handle, email, phone, address, and then we're going to get down to the questions down here. You'll notice that the idea that the following three questions will allow you to input information in three ways, either as text, audio, or video, or images. The text, limit it to 250 to 500 words, please. We have a lot of applications to go through. And then on the fourth section, how will you use your WaveMaker funds? You can upload a PDF or an Excel sheet or anything that'll articulate how you intend to complete this project. And then there are a couple supplemental sections at the bottom for images, videos, additional work samples, writing samples, and then most importantly, to attend a WaveMaker Grants info session. If you are here today, please go ahead and select yes. Okay, I'm saving the draft just for examples sake, and you can access that by going to your account information up here at the top, accessing your profile. You'll most likely need to input your email again, and then you can access drafts or submissions up at the top left, and then access drafts. And from here, you can continue the submission process. You can delete your application, or you can preview your application, which I would encourage everyone to do before they submit their application proper. Okay, so just to review really quickly some of the questions on the application. Step one, again, it's very basic info. We're going to want to know who you are and how to contact you. And then the second step is going to require answering the questions. So again, what is your idea? You're going to tell us about your vision. Why do you want to make it happen so badly? And who or what will it impact? Again, you're limited to between 200 and 500 words, or a short video response, audio response, or images. Second question, how will you make it happen? Who will you collaborate with? Where and who will you share your project with the public? And what's your timeline? Let us know basically how you plan to make it happen. And then this last question as part of this first three questions would be, who are you? Tell us a little bit about your work and your future creative goals. Why are you the right person to make this project happen? Now, again, I mentioned the fourth question, how will you use the grant funds? You have a couple different ways of submitting these questions. So again, just to reiterate, the first three questions require either a brief paragraph, video clip, or audio clip. You can only choose and submit one. And on the fourth question, you may respond with a spreadsheet, a list, or a brief descriptive paragraph. Essentially, the goal is to show us that your idea is achievable and that WaveMaker funds will have a meaningful impact on your project. If your budget exceeds the $6,000 that we provide as funding, then you should also include in your plan any details for how you plan to secure additional funding.
Can I jump in at this point? Yeah, just in terms of the budget, again, it doesn't have to be in Excel if you're not comfortable with Excel. Like Andrew said, it can be a list. One of the things that you don't have to go into finite detail on buying paper clips or whatever, a brush or whatever it may be. Just call those like general materials or supplies. We don't need that level of detail. Really, it's for the panel to see that you have a real sense of how to make this project happen within sort of budgetary constraints. So if you're saying that you're going to, build something massively huge and you've put aside a budget, using lots of materials and you put aside a budget of $250, that's going to show us that you really don't understand the cost of that labor or that materials. We do like to see artists being able to give themselves some part of the budget. So, I would recommend that it not exceed $1,000 because of the scale of this project. It's only a $6,000 max. So your budget for paying yourself should not exceed $1,000 because that would be out of scale for the project scope. If you're applying for other grants, I would suggest that in those other grants is where you also continue to pay yourself your time for doing this project. That is important. We understand that, that's part of the realities. And we want to see people's time being valued, but also appropriately. And then we can answer any other direct questions. I did just want to ask, because there was a question, if the chat was disabled or if people should put their questions in Q&A versus the chat.
Chat should not be disabled, and you do have the option of submitting Q&A via the Q&A function on Zoom.
Okay, great. Someone had asked that question in the chat.
Excellent. I see it right here. Thank you, Diago. Okay, fantastic. So moving on, we're going to go over the next steps. Lorie, would you like me to go ahead and cover this as well? Okay. All right. So let's go over the review process. As soon as you submit your grant, that's when we come in. So we'll go ahead and invite an independent panel consisting of two of our national regranting colleagues from across the country, as well as two local artists and or curators, educators, or arts professionals to assist in judging our applications.
And just, I'm so sorry, I am going to chime in because it's actually the two national regranting colleagues are, from the Warhol regranting, and they're usually curators or executive directors or other arts professionals who work for them. And it's really great visibility for you all because they get to see the work that's being done, not just among those who are being selected. The other two who are on the panel are always, one is always a past WaveMaker, and then there's the fourth person would be the local curator, educator, art professional. Just to clarify, there's always a past WaveMaker in there to stay artist-centered in the process. And then just again, in terms of timing, they will gather in person in June. They're going to review everything. It takes a little time. So April and May, they get 2 months, to review. We go through the proposals before to make sure there's nothing missing and that everybody meets the criteria. But that's the only time that we come into the selection process is just to make sure you've followed the rules of the application. And then they come together in person at Locust at the end of June and are with us for 2 days, and they make a decision among themselves. There's all kinds of discussion, and I'm there and or Andrew just to answer sort of basic, questions about whether there's something allowable in terms of the criteria and things like that. But we're really not part of that selection process. It's meant to be independent.
Okay, so a little bit about our selection criteria. So when we receive grant applications, what we're looking for is artistic merit. So the overall idea, vision, and artistic innovation. We're looking for the strength of the artistic excellence behind the project. We're looking for its relevance. So is it relevant to the local social, cultural, or community that you're a part of? Explain a little bit of that to us during the grant process. Now, accessibility, and this is very important. We're going to get to this in just a second, a little bit more in detail, but it's very important that these projects are freely accessible to the public, and that they're presented in an unconventional space. And so that is not a museum, that is not a project space, that is not a gallery, and that is not a film festival. And a little bit more information on that in just a second, but I want to keep moving. Feasibility, so capacity of the applicant to realize the project on time and within budget. You'll have the how will you make it work section to help kind of present a very persuasive argument for how you can do this. And then finally, we want to know the impact. We want to know the potential impact on the local community, the arts and cultural landscape, or the impact on your own professional or personal growth. And so, again, a very important note is that all projects must engage or be shared with the public in unconventional spaces in Miami-Dade County. This may include exhibitions, performances, events, workshops, screenings, programmings at alternative or independent artist-run spaces. Projects cannot be presented at museums, or nonprofits, film festivals, or commercial galleries. And just to reiterate, film festivals are considered traditional venues and are therefore not permitted. All right, let's go over the deadlines really quickly because this is very important. So the applications have been open since February, and they will close on April 1st. All right. Uh, in late June, again, the WaveMaker review panel will convene to review or to discuss all of the reviewed applications. And by July, all of our awardees and non-awardees will be notified, and all of our contracts will be finalized in advance of August, which is when we'll service a public announcement, distribute all the funds before August 31st, right in time for the September 1st funding period. And then we want to celebrate with with our annual splash party, which is a lot of fun and where we invite all of our former WaveMakers as well as our current grantees. So finally, where you can go to find a little bit more information on WaveMaker, you can visit wavemakergrants.org. That's our dedicated microsite to providing more information on the WaveMaker grant program. And you can also stay connected with us on social media. Our handle is Locust Projects, and the best way to stay on top of that is by following us on Instagram. And I think that opens us up to the Q&A. If there's anyone who'd like to leave some questions, either in the dedicated Q&A section or via chat, we are happy to answer it. I'm going into the Q&A section now, and I see that there is a question.
I've been answering a couple of the questions along the way. There is a question about the publication component that I think just for everyone to have the same answers in case they're not looking there. So no longer are we supporting the publication or printed art book or zine as a standalone project. It really has, in terms of like the public component, the gathering component, very, very few of the publications have proven to fit the criteria. And so we just want to make it very clear that that's, that there is no longer is that a component. If you have a zine or an art publication as part of your proposal, and so long as your budget, feasibility, and timeline really reflect that it's possible, within, and that there is a public component gathering that is accessible, free, and that, that publication is also accessible for free as part of that. That's important. That's possible. But again, we've just had a few artists and projects that have gotten involved in publications and unable to complete them. So we want to see you be successful and really meet the sort of intentions of a really publicly accessible project in a non-traditional space. And I don't know if that didn't answer the question. Let us know. Do you want to go on? I see a couple more questions here, Andrew.
Sure. All right. From Rebecca, would it be important to identify a venue or location by name and have an agreement with that location as part of the submission process? i.e., I will present my project at Crandon Park on Key Biscayne versus I will present in a public park in Miami-Dade County. So this is a question regarding specificity of venue and location.
Good question. The specificity is not as necessary if you haven't nailed down where it's going to be yet. We know this is a project. This is something you're making happen. So that's not necessary. But if you are saying that you're going to do it in a public park in Miami-Dade County, you also need to say, and I will make sure that I'm meeting all proper permitting or, space use requirements, that you will definitely make sure you do it in a way that you're ensuring that you can make it happen.
Excellent. All right. The next question is from Diago. Can you give me a quick definition as to what Locust Projects considers visual arts? So let's go. There's a couple
Wide
questions.
open, Diago. I mean, I think it's more important to say what isn't visual arts. If there is a project that is Because obviously film is visual art, dance can be a visual art, but if the project isn't, and a dancer can be, but there needs to be, other than just someone doing a dance performance that would be happening at the ballet, that's not necessarily a visual arts component. Where is it in the set? Is it in the costume designs? Purely dance for dance sake would not be necessarily considered. Does Dali Zine fall into a commercial space? It does fall into a commercial space if you are making more than what you're actually making a profit. Are you for profit? That would be the question. Nonprofits are allowed to apply, there's the long haul grant and even as a project, but then your project can't happen at your venue necessarily. If it's like a new thing, it has to be the publicly accessible, non-traditional space. Hypothetically, I'm reading the second part of the question.
And I believe also, oh, Lori, maybe
Okay.
help clarify one quick question or one question I have, which is pertaining to so if you bring a public program to a space like Zine, I imagine that a part of the requirement would entail you cannot receive payment from these commercial spaces or anything as part of any agreement to
Right,
fund.
right. Yeah. Well, commercial space wouldn't be considered a publicly accessible space. But also I think that, the question around why can't you do something at an established nonprofit that's really about Warhol wanting to ensure that it's truly an accessible incubator grant. And, like, for example, we shouldn't have projects happening at other Warhol funded organizations. If they're receiving funds through the Warhol Foundation, it's almost seen like a double dipping kind of thing. And the intention is really to be accessible to, those not already deeply within the sort of arts funding structure, if that makes sense. And there's another part. Hypothetically, if I'm considering using the project made through to enhance, or this is a good question, to enhance another commission grant received, should I apply to the long haul category? If the new component of that existing, if there's a new component, you could apply for the regular grant as opposed to, the new project grant. But if it's a continuation of, yes, the long haul would be the right spot to be in.
Excellent. All right, we have another question. Can the project be a free community event which supports the announcement around a book art publication release?
Yeah, this is a funny workaround. So how is that event a project? The deliverable is the book. And we're really trying to move away from, the publication component being the primary output of the project. So how does the book become performative? How does the book, what are the other components that you make that free community event? Just a release party um, again, the primary project deliverable output needs to not be a publication. And to the anonymous attendee, let me know if that's clear. And if not, we can continue to talk offline.
Okay, we have another question from Diago while we're waiting on the anonymous answer. So sorry, this will be the last question. Oh, and the anonymous attendee said, yes, that's
Good,
helpful. Thank
good.
you.
Yeah.
So back to
I mean,
D.
work it out. You can be creative around it, but again, just think about what is the primary output. Back to Diago. Should I have a venue agree? You don't have to. Again, we understand that you're going to make some of those decisions in the process of helping make your project happen. If you have ideas about what you ideally want to see happen, that's really good for us to know. So again, we have a more of a sense of your entire vision. But we're not going to hold you to something.
Excellent. Are there any further questions? We can be online for a few more minutes.
And just since I see Karen McKinnon and Cecilia's still from their film, Just one thing to keep in mind too, because we also had this come up with previous grantees, is that they made this fantastic film, but it was so fantastic that it was being picked up for film festivals. And we love that, but again, the premiere has to be a free, publicly accessible premiere, and then go ahead, have it show at the film festivals. But there has to be some component where it's back here in Miami, and so just keep that in mind as well. But we love everyone's success. We love seeing what's been happening.
Yes, we will post this webinar online following this presentation, so you'll have plenty of opportunities to reference everything that's in the document. The document, link to the document will also be posted in the YouTube video,
And
or
just,
publicly
and
available as well.
so sorry, Andrew. Yes. So one thing to also keep in mind is we know that this is not a big grant, and we really want to make sure that what you're applying for is within the realm of the funding available. If you're going bigger, that's fantastic. If you're going to go for, a South Florida Cultural Consortium grant or the Miami-Dade County Artist Grant, an Ellie's, those are great, but make sure you have a project that can still exist and be deliverable without them. Because unless you already have it in hand, that makes your project potentially less awardable. Because it's an unknown whether you'll be able to deliver. The other part of that is we also want to make sure that we continue to sustain a good relationship with the Warhol Foundation and make sure they're getting the right credit, and Locust is getting the credit for the grant. So if you do receive a great big grant to carry this project forward, make sure you keep us in your credit lines down the line. I just want to mention that now from the get-go, because in case you apply for a grant that wants primary or sole credit, you have to keep that in mind. Excuse me. Yes, you have to be in Miami-Dade in order to apply. It's really a resource for Miami-Dade County artists. I'm sorry, Palm Beach County. I was born in Palm Beach County, but that's the case. Anyone else? Andrew, do you have any wrap up?
No, I think that's about it. I'm very excited to see what the community has in store for us.
We are too. And also spread the word to your fellow friends. Competition is a good thing. But this is really a great opportunity to launch projects or help give you a little bit of funding to help sustain the good work that you're doing. So please share that along, and feel free to reach out. There will be what do you call it, office hours that will establish a little, like maybe a week before, just in case anybody's having any last minute sort of panics, but you can always feel free to reach out to us directly.
All right, if you've ever said to yourself, I wish this existed in my city, here's your chance. Excellent. And with that being said, I just want to thank everybody for coming out to today's WaveMaker info section. This will be posted online, publicly available, as well as all of the chat questions. If you need to reach me, my email is digital@locustprojects.org. I'm happy to answer any questions, and we will have that follow-up open hour session down the road, and we will keep you posted every step of the way. Again, thank you so much for coming out, and without further ado, thank you and goodbye.
Thank you.